Let's talk about why 0% tax is for idiots. Sounds like a pretty ugly statement, but it is very true in many cases. What I wanted to point out in today's video is how so many people just randomly decide it is time to move to a different place so that they can avoid paying taxes altogether until they realize that it was the wrong decision. And this is a subject that I have personally experienced in my life more times than I would care to admit. And I have made a fair amount of mistakes along the way. And today I wanted to talk with you about how you can go about paying 0% tax and getting it right more often than not. And not being like the people that just blindly move to a place, set up a company, set up their life without having done their due diligence first. A very classic example would be a person with a company in Cyprus, that pays like 12.5% corporate tax. Or maybe a person with a business in Gibraltar that pays 10 to 12.5% corporate tax. Right? Let's say we're talking about these people and they have companies in these countries and they're like, well, I'm paying 10 or 12.5% right now, which is a little bit much, and I want to cut down on the corporate tax rate. What do? What options do they have? Well, firstly, they probably think, well, I could just go to a country and set up an offshore company where I pay 0% corporate tax. And that you could do without needing to live in the country. That's good because you don't want to get tied up to a country you haven't really lived in. If it's just a place where you want to set up the company and you know that it's going to be placed in an economically and politically stable region, that may be a very intelligent decision. And that's what people consider at times. Sometimes people go much further and they say, you know what? I'm tired of paying these corporate taxes. Let's say they're living in the US or the UK or some other place, that's actually good for business, but they aren't happy with the corporate taxes or income taxes that they're paying. They now take a look at a place like Dubai. Well, if you have a company in Dubai, well, at least until recently, you would have paid 0% in corporate taxes. No matter how much profit you made from your UAE company, you paid 0% in taxes. But now that the government has switched gears and said, you know what, from mid-2023, the 0% corporate tax rate no longer applies, and every person, including existing businesses, are going to be required to pay a tax rate of 9%, a flat tax rate of 9%. That really kills a lot of people because they set up the company in Dubai with the expectation that the corporate tax rate is going to be the same all the time. So they cut down, whatever they paid back in Europe, in Gibraltar, back in the US, let's say they had a company in California, in Nevada, doesn't really matter. Whatever they paid there, they cut down for a certain amount of time until the change happened and they are now back to square one. They may not be back to square one in a sense that they're paying exactly the same as they paid initially, but they pay more than they expected. This is not good. One of the things that you can do and should do is to make sure that wherever you're moving to is actually a place where you can see yourself living for the next years and even decades to come. What's important to notice here is a couple of things. Culture. Can you see yourself living in a place like the United Arab Emirates in terms of culture, in terms of religion? Because you need to fall in line. No matter where you go, it doesn't matter if it's Asia, if it's the Middle East, if it's Africa, Latin America, Europe, North America, you become a product of your environment. You have to fit in. If you live in a Muslim country, you're gonna fit in some ways or others, because you're gonna have no other option. And that's one thing, right? Religion, culture is one thing. Can you accept living in a place where the culture is very different to what you're used to back home? Another thing is the climate. Can you see yourself living in a place that's damn hot in summer? We're talking 110, 115 degrees plus Fahrenheit. 40, 45 degrees Celsius. Can you see yourself living in a place like this full time? Well, the temperature is not always going to be that hot, but for a good amount of the year, it's going to be sizzling hot. Is that something you can accept? If you're a person that comes from a cold climate, you sweat easily, or you hate the heat, and we're not just talking about hot weather, we're talking about super, super hot weather. If you can't stand that, if you've never tried it, then why would you even think that this would be the right decision? Really think about it, And then, of course, the food. Well, do you want to live in the place where, you're going to have good food options in big cities? I'm not denying that. You're going to have that. But still, do you want to live in a place where you can't stand the food? Yeah, you can eat like foreign food, franchised food, but I think for you to really like a place, the food definitely plays a part. And then, of course, the networking part of it, the people part of it. Do you like the people that live in that place? Can you see yourself making friends with people there? Do you agree with people? Do you like their mentality? So many things play a role. And the reason why these little things are so important is because tax rates have changed all the time in history. Just because a place is offering you a 0% corporate tax rate today does not mean they're going to offer it 5 years from now. Well, you could argue, I don't want to live in that place 5 years from now anyway. And that would be a good point. If you just want to move to a place so you can reduce the amount of taxes that you're paying, cut it down to zero, whatever your goal is, to save up money, to bank more money, to build a business, to reap the rewards big time, if that's what you want to do, then maybe the next 10, 20, 30 years don't matter as much. If you're willing to take the sacrifice and don't care about the environment too much, because what you're going to be doing most of the time is working, if that's the case, then it's going to be less a concern for you than for somebody who wants to have a quality life, who cares about the surrounding a lot more. Maybe they move with a family. Maybe they have a wife and they want to make sure that their wife is pleased, their wife likes the environment. If that's the case, they have a lot more to consider than, a single person that has no baggage to carry along with them. And we're seeing the same things in Europe too. Just take a look at Portugal's golden visa. The requirements have gone up. The tax benefits diminished over time. It just isn't the same deal that it was 5 years ago. And with Europe talking about eliminating golden visa programs altogether, how good can you feel about moving there if you don't want to live in Europe? Because at some point you may not be able to access the tax benefits anymore. And then all that's left is the environment where you're located. And if you can't appreciate that, if that's not important to you, if that's not what you want, and if it was just for the money, then you're going to be standing there empty-handed. And that's really important. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. It's an idiotic mistake because you're just moving to a place to take advantage of the tax benefits. At the end of the day, when we die, what is going to be left is the family, not what we created, because we cannot take that with us into the grave. You understand that? Whatever you have, it's going to be worthless when you're gone. Nobody gives a damn anymore. When you are gone, when I'm gone, the question is, can we pass it on to our predecessors? Do we have anything to add to them? And if that's not the case, or if all we cared about our entire life is adding to our legacy, to pay no taxes, to just care about adding more and more and more and more and more, making more and more and more and more money, but not really caring about the quality of life. I think at the end of the day, whether a person makes $150,000 a year or $400,000 a year net, the quality of life doesn't really improve by 3 times, by threefold. It doesn't. Once you have a good life, a comfortable life, earning 5 or 10 times more doesn't make a big difference, And if you're honest with yourself, it doesn't. But what makes a big difference is making sure you're healthy, making sure you're working out, making sure you have a quality life. You're living in a clean environment. You have a good balanced life. You have a social circle. You have a family. Those are the things that really matter long term, not just that you're paying 0% in taxes, which may be the case today, may not be the case tomorrow, because you and I have no control over the tax laws of any specific country. They may be welcoming you with open arms today. They may be treating you well today, but they may not be treating you well 2 years from now. That is just a matter of fact, and that's a historic fact that I want you to focus on. What are some of the best low-tax countries in the entire world, and what should you consider before moving overseas? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.